how does that get into your corporate communication space? Because when you're communicating externally, communicating on websites, does it impact? Does it even change the language? Because I have worked with some companies wherein even the entire corporate communication strategy has been adapted to say we need to demonstrate privacy centric or trust centric language. Does it impact in your view as well?
Of course, I think when you looked at GDPR over the last, I would say 5 years, right? Because it came into force in 2018, but we started preparing for it probably about 2 years ago before that, from 2016 onwards, right? And of course, after it was coming into force, you have periodic audits and other things to make sure we're compliant on all fronts. Like any other company, it involved changes in how we were capturing data, processing data. We had to go back and look at our own existing databases and see if we did have explicit consent, or if whether we had legitimate interest in the case of existing clients and all of those things. So I think it was an intense exercise from the marketing team, particularly in Europe, because of course it's a regulation for the EU and EU citizens. We took it pretty seriously, Puneet. In fact, whenever any kind of compliance things comes along, marketing and communications teams are intensively busy, right? We never have enough resources, never have enough people, and a million things to do. So when your next compliance comes along, it's hard. And the easy thing to do is, okay, let's give it to whoever is free on the team, right? Or give it to the intern or whatever it is, and we'll comply. We'll just about comply with the bare minimum. I think GDPR was very different in that way. We took it very seriously. In fact, we put in a strong team in Europe. We put in one of our senior most marketers, a lady called Maria Thomas, and embedded with her was an expert in this field, a person called Chris. And between them, they created a larger ecosystem and team. And just the act of putting someone fairly senior on the job gave it that gravitas and that attention inside the company. So they worked out a plan. They worked out, we did the audit, we had all the education exercises, etc. And I think by the time things came about, we were ready for it. But GDPR, one point is compliance, whether it's the technology which you're using, making sure all your marketing and communication channels from our website to our outbound emails to even if we have forms in social platforms. Let's say we put a study on LinkedIn and we're capturing data from it, we still need to put in our privacy notice and all of that. So one thing is the technical part. The other part is the technology part, which is how do we change our CRM database and capture information. There were new things which needed to be kept on record with GDPR. One example being every time you capture consent, you need to keep a record of that consent, right? Yep. And keep that updated and all of those things. But I think the biggest change is actually culture.
Yes.
Right. If you'll allow me to go back to sure. One of my favorite quotes, which I often quote inside my function, it's by this gentleman called Dave Packard, who was one of the founders of Hewlett-Packard. So Dave Packard said that marketing is too important to be left to the marketing department, right? Mm-hmm. I'll paraphrase him and say privacy and data protection is too important to be left to the DPO.
Fully agree.
It's an organization-wide thing. And I think, obviously, a lot of things changed and we continue to evolve based on how things work. But by the exercise of implementing this, obviously, our European team is compliant, but it also gave a lot of insights to our teams across the world.
Right.
So, in fact, in one way, this has become the gold standard. So even in regions in the world where this law doesn't apply, we're still looking at this as the standard which we need to adhere to, right? For example, when we do things in the United States or in other places, US is more regional in law. California has a different privacy thing. I mean, you're aware of all of that. But we look at this as the gold standard. So if you're compliant to GDPR in the US or compliant to GDPR in Singapore, then we feel that whatever is the local regulation, that is covered anyways within. And in that sense, it's been extremely useful as an exercise internally too.
Indeed. And I think GDPR usually serves as the gold standard or a policy which you can frame in the company and say, this is the standard we will adhere to. And then any other law is more on an exception basis because you would 80-90% cover most of the things. And does it impact the marketing part also, because you needed the communication part, your entire strategy needs to change. So is it very similar? Because in the marketing, or I don't know if you see events as something else, in the way events were being organized, in the way you were recording, in the way you were collecting images, that has shifted or changed a lot.
It certainly has. It certainly has, and I think we run marketing communication in integrated manner.
Okay.
If especially in terms of marketing activities, you're speaking about events. We're talking about content. We're talking about engaging our audiences and prospects and other things. There is probably a bigger change than is on the communication side, which is more communications oriented towards media and social media, which has some changes. But the marketing side, there's been immense changes. In fact, let me try and illustrate this in terms of a story, right? I'll talk about the world's most valuable database.
Yeah.
Do you know what that is? Any guesses? What's the world's most valuable database?
I would say it's the customer database or the identity of individual citizens.
Okay, I'm using a little bit of hyperbole, but so I'm talking about the World Economic Forum of Davos, right? It's we've been a partner to the World Economic Forum for we celebrated 10 years of our partnership in last year when the event was actually held, and of course since then things have been different over the last 18 months, as we've all noticed. So one of the things. So if you look at the World Economic Forum, their flagship event is Davos, which is the annual meeting which takes place in January in Switzerland in the small ski resort of Davos. You have about 3,000 official delegates and a lot of other people come in there. And the reason why this gets so much attention, rightfully so, is because those 3,000 delegates are people who are leaders of the world's largest businesses, governments, academia, media, civil society. There are about 1,500 CEOs and chairpersons of the world's largest companies there. There are more than 100 heads of states there, and so forth, right? So the reason why any company or any CEO goes there, because everyone else is there, right? Now, what does that mean? Now, when we go to Davos, we do a lot of things there. But we host certain events. We have a big reception there for 500 leaders. Very importantly, we have meetings. We have it's a grueling schedule for our own leadership team. They do 40 or 50 30-minute meetings over 3 days. Now, what goes behind setting all of this up, right? Getting people to your reception, setting those one-on-one meetings and all of that is the world's most valuable database, which is this list of 3,000 people who attend Davos.
Right.
Now, historically, before GDPR, this list used to be freely shared between partners saying, okay, these are all the people coming. This is everyone's contact number. This is their email, and there you go, right? And you could contact each other and set up your agendas and schedules and invite each other to lunches and whatever. I think the year before GDPR was to come into force, the forum, like any other institution, also imbibed and took an early step on that process and implemented it to the letter, as they should. And what they did was that when you were registering for Davos, you had the option. Well, you were opted out, so you needed to opt in if you wanted your phone number or your email or whatever shared with whoever else is coming there. As you know, what happens in opt-in is not by any other reason, but just by default.
Yeah.
Most people end up not opting in.
Correct.
Right? Because it's not clear to them why they should opt in or what they get out of it.
True.
So when they assembled this database, only something like 30% of the people had opted in. So suddenly we were left in a situation where a whole lot of people whom we wanted to invite to our reception or to our event or to have meetings with, we didn't have a central database available to contact them. How did we fix this problem? Our marketing department went to overdrive. We put in place a team inside our event team. We had a team in India, and they used a very old economy way of sorting this out, which is when we identified who we wanted to invite or meet in the list. We obviously, we looked at it from GDPR and legal point of view, and we made almost one-on-one outreaches to people, right? So, for example, if you wanted to call the chairman of a company to a dinner, there would be someone who's made a call to their head office saying, we are this company, so the digital company saying this is funny, but this is what we did. Is we made a call to the head office saying that we're hosting a dinner at this thing. We'd love to call the chairman. Could you share your email with us, or could you let us know on what what place we can send this invite, right? So a different exercise. Some people were reached out on social platforms, and in a sense, we reassembled manually the database. 2-3 month exercise, we managed to get the database up to about, I think, 80 or 85%. Wow. And our events and things were very successful at Davos, as always. There was no blip that year, right? But I think in many ways, it was a good exercise because it taught us that you could go out and in a very ethical way, reassemble something which was available to you easy before.
Yes.
Right. And I think scores of companies, when GDPR came on, especially marketing companies, outreach companies, agencies which help you with sales, really suffered because immediately their 70, 80, 90% of the databases were lost.
Right.
A lot of them mailed people to ask for an opt-in, and people didn't.
Yeah.
Right.
Thanks for listening. And now we ask you for some help. Take a moment to subscribe and review this podcast. Your support matters. And if you have done it already, thank you so much. Now, if you have questions or suggestions, drop an email at hello@fitforprivacy.com. And finally, if you know someone who will benefit from this, share this podcast with them and help us grow. Thank you so much. Stay safe and see you next time.